Good morning, America. Hubert Johnson here with Taxes Made Easy. We've got a lot of interesting news to talk about, and one of the big things out there is, again, there's still some information people are talking about the second Trump assassination attempt. And so yesterday I talked about civility. It is very important, so important that when we're talking with people, when we're communicating, that we remember we're Americans first. And it should go without saying, it shouldn't have to be pumped and emphasized so much. But in today's day and age, we need to remember that on both sides of the aisle, we're not enemies. We might disagree on some things, but one of the things I'm going to focus on today is how the IRS, Taxpayer Advocate, can help you. So not all parts of the IRS are bad or difficult or trying to fight you. And we're going to talk about how they can help you resolve thorny issues. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. So again, interesting show today. We're going to have some interesting topics and news articles today, um, and some not as serious. We don't always have to be so tight and serious talking about taxes. Um, but one of these, this one will probably make you shake your head. And this is something that, while I'm not a PETA member, I do believe that we should torturing and animals, dog fights, stuff like this, is inhumane. That's kind of the value. One of the values I think most Americans share is that inflicting unnecessary pain and torture on animals is not a good thing and can lead to very destructive, horrible behavior. So again, um, that's not how we want to operate as a country. So again, this is an article come from New York City, and you have people from all across the world in New York City. It's a very cosmopolitan city, and that's many would argue is one of its strengths. Oh, cute little pig here. But they federal and local authorities are cracking down on animal sacrifices in Queens, New York. And again, not only are they killing chickens, pigs, rats, they've been killed. They've also been mutilated and tortured. Now, again, people farm. I support farming. I support. Again, I eat meat. It's just part of how humanity has lived. But torturing and mutilating animals, I think, is beyond the pale. And I think most Americans wholeheartedly agree it's not okay. Um, and so, Councilwoman from Queens is announcing this is a huge win for local animals to go after them. They're trying to deploy mobile lighting units and have more enforcement patrols to trouble zones where they're finding out that these animals are being mutilated and killed. So, again, some of the animals that they're finding aren't dead, but they've been mutilated. A near dead baby rat tied up in a bag with chicken bones. A lot of it. Who's doing this? I mean, it just don't really need to go into the details. But they're happening this, repeatedly, multiple times a week, and the belief is that it's from Hindu devotees to the goddess Kali. So it reminds me of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Um, Again, that's probably very, coming from a movie, it's probably a very bad idea. It just made me chuckle. Um, and people are arguing about it. Again, this is just because someone might have human animal torture as part of their religion, is that something we should allow? I would say no. I would say no. But there are differences of opinions, and people come to this country with all kinds of beliefs, practices, um, So again, Santeria and voodoo, which again from the Caribbean, also have been known to perform animal sacrifices as well. And now lately they've been using the beaches and parks surrounding Jamaica Bay, New York, to carry out these bloody rites. Yeah, it's. So I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. And so the next article, and did I lose it? There was no, it was another town hall article. I just have to pull up real quick about the and I'm laughing because this came out in the debate, and you've had people saying that it's not happening in Ohio. They're not eating cats and dogs. How do they know? And whenever someone claims, "Oh, I'm sure that's not happening," it probably is happening. And again, just like in New York, here in Ohio, someone even got a video of someone cooking a cat, grilling them up like Bobby Flay. And again, this is not a serious story. Yeah, is it bothersome to people that are there in Ohio? Yes, absolutely. When they have their ponds and their geese and their ducks that are enjoying life, and then they see people just grabbing them and having dinner. That's probably how they lived in where they come from in Haiti. I mean, it's not wildlife, it's food. And again, breaking massive laws in the process by consuming geese and ducks. And there's been plenty of police reports and 911 calls to confirm all of this. This is about a year old of a cat actually being grilled in Ohio. So a skinned cat. Don't look. I'm not even going to play the video if you don't want to. But I'm going to clip this if you want to watch. You can, I guess. Again, very funny, colorful commentary here about it. And what's normal here. I mean, we've had similar issues when Vietnamese, about people fled Vietnam like crazy. They came to LA, Los Angeles, and California, and then small little pet dogs started coming up missing because they were being eaten. When you have culture clashes, people come to the country. It just highlights the frustration that people are having in Ohio, and it's a little bit more of a humorous take instead of being mad and angry about it. But the funny thing is, and this is what is more serious. Oh no, actually, this is a little more serious. This talks about we have all kinds of differences of opinion. People might think they're not eating animals in Ohio. When I heard about it, I'm like, well, culturally differences. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't. I'd be surprised if they weren't eating animals, that are out there available. Instead of going to the store, I mean, they probably are used to grabbing and butchering live animals. But this story really going into why hasn't the Secret Service given Trump, and again, this is an editorial, so it's an opinion, and talks about how if it was President Biden, the whole golf course would have shut down. There's no way this guy would have gotten anywhere clear. This shooter got as close as 300 yards from the president. That's well within where an assassin could take out a president within, or somebody, or a sniper could take out a person 300 yards. The person that shot his ear was 200 yards, roughly 200 yards away from him. So again, an agent doing his job spotted a rifle barrel sticking out of a fence through some bushes, and then fired on him, scaring him off. He just happened to see this barrel sticking out of bushes. If he hadn't seen it, Trump could be dead again. Again, very, very scary. And so the point here is, why doesn't he have more security? He should have the same level as President Biden, because, of course, people aren't trying to shoot President Biden. They're actively gunning for President Trump. And we know that Iran has kind of put out a little fatwa against him, announcing that they want him dead. So, and this explains why, Tehran's death order follows the U.S. takeout of Qasem Soleimani, as well as he okayed assassinating Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the ISIS chief. And pretty much every terror outfit in the world would be happy to take Trump down. So, it doesn't help. Most of the people trying to take these, they're not foreigners. They're liberals. And part of the problem is here you've had 4 or 8 years demonizing Trump as an existential threat to democracy. And it's continuing right now as we speak. So, whether or not you believe that he is, going and killing a fellow American because you think they're going to end democracy as we know it, again, is insane rhetoric. If it really is going to the extremes that, to be honest, the Democrats have really pushed and pushed hard. So this is what scares me even more. Not so much what other people say, but Hillary Clinton, who ran for president, lost to Trump. I'm sure she's still pretty upset about that. So she came up, and again, this is from the Daily Fetch, it's a right-wing source. Right the day after a second assassination attempt, here's Hillary Clinton's words. The press needs to create a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. The press is already doing that. The press is already in the tank, a hook, line, and sinker for the Democrats. So you can't trust most of what they said. He is a danger to our country and the world. The day after a second assassination attempt. So again, either she wants him dead, or she's absolutely clueless here. This is the kind of inflammatory language coming out of top Democrats. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have changed their language after the assassination attempt, but then they go on and on about how he's a threat to democracy. It's just nuts. So this is the interesting language right here. You can watch the video. And again, all different news sources. There's plenty of misinformation from the right as well. But the point, when you see the quotes, when you hear it directly out of the mouth, I don't think that's, unless the video is edited, it's going to be, you can rely on that. So he said there were Russians engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. That's been proven wrong, but anyway. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda, and whether they should be civilly or criminally charged would be something that would be a better deterrent. So if people are saying, engage in this kind of propaganda, people are saying stuff you disagree with in the United States of America, you should be civilly or criminally charged for misinformation? I'm sorry. Hillary Clinton. We're out of time. I'll have to come back to this. Welcome back, everybody. So just wrapping up this article. One of the things, again, especially after a second assassination attempt, I think Americans really need to take a hard look at themselves. And what do we need to do to become a more civil society, engaging? Remember that we're Americans first. The values, and that's historically liberals and the left were huge defenders of free speech. Personal rights. They've completely abandoned this. And this is if you don't understand the value of free speech, go live in Venezuela. Go live in a communist country and see how much you can actually talk openly about different topics. again, without fear of being jailed. So, ironically, they're going civilly and criminally after Trump, right? So, again, whether or not he committed any crime, one of the biggest things is him overstating, um, for real estate purposes, the value of property. There's plenty of people have come out and said almost anybody. That's how business is done. What they're going after Trump for can be anybody can they can go after anybody for this. So they're making things up there. It's not something that's out of the ordinary. It's a normal course of business and real estate. But yet they're going after him for any kind of crime. You know, again, Joseph Stalin famously said, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. Who am I going after? I will make up a crime to go after him." That's again a huge problem with any corrupted judicial system. So to go after civilly or criminally anybody that disagrees with you or dares to speak out on COVID, people that spoke out on COVID, not agreeing with it, were censored. People lost licenses. This is the kind of crazy things that happens in communist countries. So Hillary Clinton, please go away. Again, this is the kind of inflammatory language, and people that are suggesting that we go out and prosecute people that disagree with us they're the threat to democracy. So she's saying they throw red meat out there. If his ideas are ridiculous, and some of them are, I'll be the first to agree with that. I don't agree with everything Trump is saying, but we should be discussing ideas and, you know, ideas and facts rather than, you know, trying to demonize people. So she says she does worry about political violence the day after an assassination, and she's talking like this. So I do have a huge problem with that, and hope that's really where we're going to be going today is how do we be a better society, but also that the government is not out to get us, so to speak. But again, when it comes to one of the things I haven't talked about is how after the last Supreme Court ruling on January 6th, hundreds of those cases have been dropped. People that have been prosecuted wrongly for years have been dropped as our DOJ and our government has been weaponized by the Biden administration and some would argue even the Obama administration. Wanting to move on, again, it's those values, the free speech, etc., that really make us unique as a country and in the world. You don't get these free speech protections. You don't get these values really held dear in other countries. So going back to some economic news, people are anticipating the Fed decision. Everybody is expecting them to cut rates. So the stock market is rising. People are trading, anticipating what's going to happen. So again, they're getting ahead of the gun, jumping the gun a little bit here. But I think it's pretty a secure guess is here that the Fed is going to cut rates by at least a quarter percent. You could say they're doing it for political reasons, but I think economically it's the right time. The labor market in particular is very soft right now, especially for American citizens. Most of the hiring is going to immigrants here, legally or illegally, mostly illegally. So they're going to do at least a quarter percent. It could be 50%, and that should come tomorrow on Wednesday. So, again, most of the rest is just speculation going back and forth, but I do think it's time, and most economists agree that it's time to do that. So Boeing, and this is going to be in the news, 33,000 announced that they were striking yesterday. So the management is taking drastic steps to limit the damage, hold on to cash as much as possible while they deal with this massive strike. And again, this couldn't come at a worse time for Boeing. They just got a new CEO. They're trying to turn things around. So, but again, over 90% of the union members voted to strike. So this is, they're pretty much unanimous here that they need to strike. So they've frozen hiring, warning about possible layoffs. They're taking everything they can do to cut costs, and this is not going to hurt just Boeing. It's going to hurt anybody that does business with Boeing. So, and the main thing they're doing this is to preserve cash and safeguard the company moving forward, depending on how long this goes. They're cutting spending, cutting back on spending in all kinds of areas, but most importantly, they're trying to maintain safety, quality, and direct customer support work. So keep their core business going. Boeing offered an 11% wage increase, enhanced retirement benefits, job security, safeguards, and reduced mandatory overtime. However, the machinist, and it mentions here, they're asking for a bigger wage increase. And one of the things they got rid of was the pension. So they want a stronger retirement program. They want to go back to the benefits they used to have, which Boeing is not offering. And they want more control over mandatory overtime. So I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong here. I don't know enough to actually make a decision here. But it's going to affect all kinds of people that work with charitable contributions that Boeing is involved in, non-essential contractors, catered meals, team events, a lot of stuff that Boeing does that benefits the economy in the areas where they operate is going to be affected. So it's not going to it's going to affect all kinds of people, not just Boeing. So be aware of that. Next article, another breach. This is if you don't think someone's stolen your identity, if you don't think your identity is out there, I would think twice about it. There's been so many data breaches. Hackers have gotten so sophisticated. The best thing you can do is to get some kind of identity protection. Make sure you have a PIN with the IRS so you can file your taxes and moving forward, and just be aware that it's out there. So 23andMe this is kind of scary. They're trying to settle a lawsuit over a data breach. Wasn't their fault. They got hacked. Someone came in there, and the hackers are consistently attacking any place that saves and preserves data. So not only did they steal the normal stuff, social security, addresses, names, date of birth, all that, they stole genetic information and ancestry reports. So that's even more alarming. So DNA information, your name, sex, date of birth, genetic information, predicted relationships with genetics matches, ancestry reports, ancestors' birth locations, family names, family tree information, geographic location. So this is all stuff that if you do a deep dive, like if you go to register with the IRS, they're asking, where did you live previously? I mean, they're asking stuff that's 20, 30 years ago. A lot of us are scratching our head. I don't know if I remember that. So this is a huge breach. Happened a while ago, but again, it's in the news again as they're offering $30 million as a settlement for people that were affected by this. But they deny any wrongdoing. They didn't do anything. They had protection. It was just breached. Again, hackers are getting more and more aggressive across the world. Many of this is done at a foreign level. So again, just a big warning. Protect your information. Don't trust scams, and be very aware of kind of some of the scams going on. So, quick article continuing with the fraud theme. Cryptocurrency fraud cost Americans $5.6 billion in 2023. So if you're not sure who to invest with, use a financial investor. Go to these EFTs that have been announced and put in just this year. and don't just use anything on the internet. There's gonna be plenty of places, um, and so these account for roughly 10% of financial fraud complaints, but nearly 50% of losses, up 45% since 2022. So if you are investing in cryptocurrency, be very careful. There's a lot of fraud, and there's sources that are questionable. So 69,000 complaints, loss of about $5.6 billion, and investment scams are one of the worst. They accounted for 71% of all losses. So again, it's, if you're not sure, I would check. And here in California, you had the biggest scams, loss of $1,155,000,000. So the over 65 demographic are who they are talking to. If you haven't talked to your elderly relatives about fraud, about cryptocurrency, about not just giving money over, it is a huge problem out there, and it's taking people's life savings. Make sure they're invested, they're safe, they're ideally in a trust, something that they can't just reach very quickly. And again, you're not trying to control them, but just putting some barriers to prevent scams like this. And again, it's humiliating, it's frustrating, and it's happening across the board. So it's not just them. So a couple last articles that we're going to mention. They say bipartisan group of lawmakers. It's mostly Democrats with a few Republicans, about 25 Republicans. But this is interesting if you're not aware of it. This is an issue I've seen people run into where people work for the public government. So they, if they work for the post office, currently, if you work for the post office, if you work as a federal employee and you're getting a federal pension, you can't get a federal pension and Social Security. So this is where it gets interesting. Is one gentleman, he worked and retired for the post office, and then went and worked in the private sector, working for a normal job, W-2 job, and paid into Social Security. He still could not get Social Security and his pension, even though he paid into both systems. They see that as double dipping into the federal government retirement system, and it's been that way for decades, probably 50, 60 years at least. And so if you are going into those areas, they've actually changed some of the transparency of that, so they have to let new hires know that, hey, if you get this pension, you're not going to get Social Security. It doesn't affect just the retirees, it affects spouses. And so it can lead to some unjust results. So where someone, if a spouse relied on, worked and paid in the Social Security system, but then their spouse had a federal pension, and as a surviving spouse, they're entitled to that pension, but they can't get that pension without threatening their Social Security. So again, it's a thorny issue here. So it's the Social Security Fairness Act, which you're discussing. Again, it's late in the game. You do have 25 Republicans supporting it, and mostly Democrat support. And there's 327 co-sponsors. It might pass. It probably won't get this Senate, but the people supporting this are police, firefighters, teachers, postal workers, government employees. So basically people affected by it would love to change this to benefit themselves. It can be unfair on both sides, though, where you get double dipping. So they're trying to, it's more complicated than just getting rid of it. If this does affect you, you might want to pay attention to what's going on, talk to your congressman or senator to get this taken care of. But one of the big concerns here is that if they do get rid of these rules, if they just eliminate them, it's going to further drain the trust account and make and where Social Security runs out of money even faster. So again, it's estimated cost 196 billion over 10 years. Again, sounds like a big number, about 20 billion a year. So more spending justly and unjustly when we can't really afford it. So the last article here, this is from Forbes, and I want to go through this. This is something I've talked about. This isn't anything new. So the U.S. gained thousands of new centimillionaires, which is people with 100 million or more in assets, and with the new proposal to target people with 100 million or more in assets, they could be going right out the door to other places. So really that's the gist of the article. This is some Forbes and talking about companies that help this, just some key facts. There's almost 30,000 people now in the world with assets of around 100 million, or at least 100 million. It's a 50% increase over the last decade. And the US has the largest number. China has had a huge boom in centimillionaires. One of the big concerns is that the upcoming election, even if you're not going to do it, even if it's not plausible now, the more these ideas of taxing unrealized gains are going to scare people off. It's going to take a huge hit on people with massive assets that, we're talking 25 minimum tax on unrealized capital gains, and it's going to take a lot of people are expected to leave. So a lot of people are already talking and already looking into the possibility of getting citizenship elsewhere and leaving the United States. People with these kinds of assets don't have to stay in the United States. They can work remotely. They can go elsewhere. And there's many good reasons why other countries don't tax it. It's very difficult to do. It's very complicated, and more and more wealthy Americans are looking to move abroad as a result. So it gets into it more, and there's more details here. I'm not going to dive too much into that. We are coming up on our last break here. But again, there's always consequences. And even talking about price controls on groceries, even talking about going after individuals and trying to gouge the rich, that doesn't help. Because the rich pay more taxes than anybody else. And that can lead to less income and revenues, federal revenues, to offset ever more spending. So it's just kind of nuts that it doesn't matter how much we make, we manage to spend more than ever. When we come back, we're going to focus on Taxpayer Advocate and how they can help you resolve thorny issues with the IRS. And we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, and we're going to really focus in on Taxpayer Advocate. So, first of all, I'm going to take you directly to the source. We're going to go to the irs.gov website, and that's the easiest way to find it. So you can just go to irs.gov, and it's always important that you're going directly to the source. So right here, this is what irs.gov looks like. It's just the URL is very simple, irs.gov. That's how you know you're at the official government website for the IRS. There's plenty of information. This is how you sign into or create your own tax account. You can get a lot of information off of irs.gov. And again, they have news. They have all kinds of things. I get a lot of information from here. Here's their news postings. There was nothing over the last couple days, but a lot of stuff, a lot of information comes from here. So especially when there's emergency declarations, I try to direct people directly to irs.gov. And doesn't mean everything's accurate on here, but it's a good source for information. So I already typed in the search bar, Taxpayer Advocate. If you just do a Google search and look for Taxpayer Advocate, it'll come up. So let's go ahead and search on this. And so I'm just trying to walk you through how to get information and contact the Taxpayer Advocate. So again, you could go directly to Taxpayer Advocate. This is the first thing that pops up. It's purple because I already clicked on it. It's an independent organization within the IRS. Their whole mission is to connect with taxpayers, see what can't be fixed or is people are struggling with fixing with the IRS, and then they will communicate with the IRS to try to fix issues. Now, they can't overturn what a revenue officer is doing. They can't go in and change what the offer and compromise is doing. So they're limited what they can do, but they can be very, very helpful in taking care of problems that haven't been addressed. So case in point, I had a case yesterday. I got a call. This case has been going on for over a year because they're not quick. They're overwhelmed. So right now it's probably taking 6 to 9 months to get a taxpayer advocate assigned to your case. But once you get assigned, they can be very useful and do stuff that would be very difficult for us to do. And the IRS is relying heavily on the taxpayer advocate to resolve these issues. So true case, the IRS filed a substitute for return, which is a return they drafted for one of my clients. And it was for 2018. So they went in and they filed an original return. So the IRS filed the substitute for return against the wife, but when they filed their return, so it was just under the wife's social, they filed jointly as husband and wife. So when they filed an original return, it should have removed and gotten rid of the SFR, the substitute for return that the IRS filed, because they filed an original return. But because he was the primary, she was the secondary, and it attached to her social, what should have happened didn't. So now they had a tax balance from their original return, and the IRS was going after this tax balance for this balance under the SFR for the same tax year. Obvious mistake. Needed to be addressed. It took us a year to get Taxpayer Advocate on the case for them to actually communicate with the accounts management, which is very, very difficult to get a hold of. I called yesterday. I have a couple of cases that I need to talk to them on, and half the time I just get disconnected. It's very, very difficult to get through to them. And they drop calls worse than any other department. Again, the customer service is atrocious. However, the Taxpayer Advocate was able to get this taken care of, and I was able to verify that the entire balance was wiped out. My clients were given peace of mind, and they were able to breathe easy. So how do you get the Taxpayer Advocate on your case? So I'm gonna jump back and forth between these two tabs. It's a simple form called a 911. And it's called a 911 for obvious reasons. So you can go to the tax qualifier tool and see if they can help you with your tax issue, or you can prepare it and just submit it. So here's exactly what the form looks like. It's very basic: taxpayer name, identifying information, address, who do they reach out to, what's going on, what form is it involved, what tax years, and what's going on here. So it's pretty basic issue. What's the issue? What kind of relief do you want? And the third party information, if you have a representative, they can fill that out. The rest of it, the IRS fills out. You don't touch. So it's just a one-page form. Your information, your representative's information, what's the issue, and how do you want it solved? What kind of solution are you looking for? So I'm going to go back to the other page. That's how you submit for a taxpayer advocate. There are ways to call and try to get assistance. They even have virtual assistants, which I haven't used because our issues are usually more complicated than what a virtual assistant can handle. But you can get questions answered. And if you're working with a tax professional, they can tell you very quickly if these are these are the right issues to deal with. If you are getting garnished, if you have a bank levy, immediate collection action, I wouldn't use the taxpayer advocate because it takes them 6 to 9 months to even get on the case. There are other ways to get someone to respond. You have a CAP appeal, you have a CDP appeal that can stop the collections right away, especially when the IRS is acting improperly. So use it, it's a tool, use it when it makes sense. So just want to kind of get you familiar a little bit with the page, get help. You know, they have a lot of articles, resources for taxpayers, tax news information. They do report to Congress, and they give suggestions to Congress of what the IRS should do and how they should improve on a regular basis. And then you can contact them. So this is, do you need an advocate? Use the qualifier tool. Find a local TAS office. So it's a tax advocate service, so that's why it's TAS. I use this all the time. So let's say if you are in Georgia, and it will pull up the offices in Georgia, gives you the directions, you know, here's the address, get directions, call, fax, email. It's usually better to call. If you just walk in, they'll probably just set an appointment for you to talk to someone. And there are appointment offices that the IRS can set up that aren't taxpayer advocate offices, but you can set up appointment, and they can be very helpful. When I had a case in Guam where we couldn't get the returns, were rejected multiple times. I wasn't as familiar with Guam. We went in, they told us exactly what needed to happen, how we need to address it moving forward. And while they can't fix the issue for you if you go in and set an appointment, it's a great source of information when you have a crazy issue going on. You can go to pretty much any other state. Let's go with Colorado. It tells you the local office, where it is, directions, phone number, fax, email. You can always fax in a 911 report or 911 report or form. I would call them and follow up. They're very difficult to get on the phone. It might make a lot more sense to email them. And I haven't tried actually going to an office. So again, that's just taking a quick look at Arizona. Pretty sure they're up in Phoenix. Yep. So Phoenix, Arizona, it's a local taxpayer advocate office. I've never gone directly to the office, but again, we use them all the time on cases. So very handy. We're going to go back to their main page here. What kind of things are they? You got to notice specific tax issue, and their whole goal is not to defend the IRS. So if you talk to someone and they're sitting there defending the IRS, you might have a bad agent. You can always ask to talk to a manager, but sometimes they're trying to explain to you what they can and can't do. So again, the taxpayer bill lights a lot of other information here. I'm gonna stop sharing for a sec. What is the taxpayer? What do they excel at? I had it. So if you have a penalty that was just not fair, not right, and it doesn't fall under the first time penalty abatement or the 843 penalty abatement, you can use taxpayer advocate to get things resolved. If you're doing an audit reconsideration or an audit appeal and you just haven't heard from anybody, nobody's responded to you, submitted documents, and they say, oh, we don't have them, they are a good source. Once a taxpayer advocate is on your case, you can say, here are the documents I've submitted time and time again, and the IRS is not getting them. So don't go to the taxpayer advocate right away. You want to go to them when you have tried the normal avenues of working with the IRS and they've failed. Submitting paperwork to the IRS often is like throwing stuff into a black hole. You don't know when or if you're going to get a response. But by using taxpayer advocate, they contact the people deeper into the organization that we can't even talk to. and they can make sure that the paperwork, the forms, and the case lands on the right desk to get addressed. It's going to take time. It's going to be very difficult. Good example, I had someone who, a client, who owned a golf course, and he was the only employer or employee. So he was the employer, but paid himself a W-2. So he was doing payroll for himself. Someone had the bright idea and told him, hey, you should do a 401k for yourself. Bad idea. Yes, there's tax benefits, but he didn't know how to run it. He didn't know how to set it up appropriately and got smacked with a $100,000 fine when he never even had $100,000 in his 401k for himself. Was the penalty legitimate? Yes. Did it follow the rules? Yes. Was the IRS technically correct? Yes. But was this fair and just? And believe it or not, those are two things that the IRS should be considering. So when they get results that just aren't fair, don't make sense, you can appeal it. We appealed it through Taxpayer Advocate and won. Got the whole penalty reversed. It took some kicking and screaming. It took, we were on the case for well over a year. But these are the kind of cases where you have a thorny issue. Either the IRS just isn't responding, or they're not looking at your paperwork in a serious manner. Or like this other case when we had something that needed to be reversed and wasn't reversed. So again, they can be extremely helpful. And again, this is why I'm talking about them, that this portion of the IRS, the Taxpayer Advocate, is designed to help. And it's designed to help people resolve their issues. Now, if you have a revenue officer assigned and things are very thorny, there are better ways to get it handled, to go to a manager, use the cap appeal. But if you have a revenue officer that's not responsive, not responding whatsoever, they can make sure the revenue officer gets that information. But there are better ways to go about it. If you're struggling with the offer and compromise unit, they don't touch offers. So if it's with an offer and compromise, they have their own appeal system. It's not working very well right now. The manager's overwhelmed. Anybody that knows anything is so busy there at the IRS that you have to deal with people that really don't know what they're talking about. So we're getting some really weird results out of the offer and compromise unit. But again, this is where it takes a tax expert to know how to appeal, know how to work in the system to get your cases and issues addressed. So this is why Taxpayer Advocate is very helpful, and I would use those in conjunction with a good tax professional that knows how to use them to your benefit. Can you call them on your own? Absolutely. Can they help you sometimes with simpler issues? Absolutely. But it's not just a simple call. If you want to just go in and see someone and get some questions answered, call the IRS appointment line. And you can schedule an appointment between 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it's out to 6 weeks or more. But that's where you get to go down and sit down with the IRS in a local office, talk to someone face to face, and they can help tell you how to address your case, how to help you out. But even then, I've gone with plenty of clients, and when they try to explain things to their clients, it can be overwhelming. It can be too much. I speak their language. So when they tell me we need to do A, B, C, and D, you've tried this, try this. It absolutely helps to have a professional help you guide through the process and help you understand what needs to be done to resolve your case in a productive way. So I do think the Taxpayer Advocate is a great organization within the IRS. They're just overwhelmed. So not easy to get a hold of, not easy to get assigned to your case, but once they are, they can really do a lot to help you out. And your main collections, most of the IRS, they do operate like a collection agency because they are the largest collection agency in the world. That's what they are. But there is help out there. There's a way to get your issues resolved. And so hating on the IRS is not the solution. Yelling and screaming at IRS representatives is just going to get a bunch of notes put in your case that aren't going to be positive. Anybody that looks up your case will see those. So let's take a breath, step backwards, and I think, I know that working with and using the IRS channels can help resolve a lot of thorny issues and give you the peace of mind that you and your family need. And that's our whole goal, is to give you that peace of mind and make taxes easy for you. It's not just a slogan. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.